Jake, as a guy who values honesty and integrity as much as you do, how do you feel about relationships that are based on a lie?
I think sometimes the best relationships in our lives are sometimes built around a lie.
That sounds like crap. Come on, man.
Yeah, I think sometimes the best relationships we have are built around a lie, Pete.
What Sandra Bullock movie have you seen that ever ends that way, man? Truth is the important part of a relationship.
I could see how one thinks that truth is the foundation of any relationship, but let's not say you've probably lied to talk to a girl at some point, right?
Bad example because I've been with like my now wife since I was 14 years old.
Yeah, but let's say 17 years ago when you met your wife, did you ever lie to try and seem cool?
I probably did. I was in high school. I did a lot of dumb things.
Now you're married. Worked out pretty well. I'm in your house. Mm-hmm.
In the studio, dog.
You have cats.
I do.
Yeah, so see, sometimes the best relationships in our life built on lies, Pete.
Well, have you an example, sir?
The best example of a friendship in my life built on a lie. Yes. It's a story I've been wanting to tell for a long time. It's one of my favorite stories, but I didn't want to put it on like the first episode because so many less people are going to listen to that. Whereas like one person listened to the first episode and 6 people will listen to this episode. I wanted all 6 people to hear it.
All 6 people to listen to it and then give it a 5-star review.
So the story is kind of about my favorite band of all time.
This is your lie.
The Red Hot Chili Peppers.
They're no one's favorite band. Come on, dog.
My favorite band of all time is the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
No.
But they're actually not my favorite band. I actually didn't like them for a really long time. However, they may be the complete basis for the best friendship I have with my best Japanese friend. And that's where we start, Pete.
The stage has been set.
That's where we start. On the Panda Money episode, I talked about going back to Japan after being terrorized and tortured and stuff, right? So I'm back in Japan in August and 2016, and I'm like, you know what? Right from the time I walked in the door, everyone treated me differently. It was, Jake, good to see you, welcome back, all of that. So I was one of the boys, and in my head, before I got there, I was like, you know what? It is my mission on this trip to become friends with people. I want to make friends. I want this to be my company because loyalty over there is the most important thing. And I was like, you know what?
Above honesty, integrity. I mean, as long as you have loyalty, good to go.
This is why they don't trust people that don't drink. They think you're honest when you're drunk, and they want your honesty. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever it takes to make friends because wrestling in Japan is the only thing I ever want to do. It's my complete goal in wrestling. It's like I have to be accepted by these people and the culture. So a few days into August, I am in my dorm. I'm just on the bottom bunk, just chilling. And the door flies open. And in walks a guy named Yuji Hino. And Hino is a very big, brutal, badass dude. Like, Hino was the champion of the company at the time. He's like 270 pounds, 5'10", built like a tank. He's a scary guy. And everyone just kind of respects him and gives him a wide berth. Like, you don't mess with Hino. Also, people usually don't engage in too much conversation with him unless he initiates. He's just that type of guy. Not unlike my friend Russ.
Russ is big.
Yeah. And Hino's bigger and hits harder. So Hino pops into the dorm and he looks at me. He looks around first and sees I'm the only one in there. I'm like, oh, hi. And he's like, hi. You, me, beer? And I was like, pretty sure Hino's asking me if I want to go get a beer.
No, Hino wants you to go get him a beer.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, the way he said it was beer. Like, maybe we beer. And I was like, you know what? I am making friends, Pete. If it's the last thing I do, I'm making friends on this trip, and this is the perfect guy to make friends with.
Oh, especially because all the beer you enjoy.
Absolutely, I love beer. So I'm like, yes, let's go. So I stand up, throw on my shoes, and I follow Hino. I'm like, man, this is weird.
Okay, stupid question.
Yeah.
And it's terrible aside. Where can you wear shoes and where can you not wear shoes?
In houses and like establishments like that have like a nice floor, you have to take off your shoes. We can wear our shoes in the dojo in everything that's not a room you eat in or have like a presentation in, kind of. So like so many people come and go in our building because it's a working office and gym and so many things where like we can actually wear our shoes into our room if we want, but we can't wear them into the kitchen. We can't wear them into like the lobby-ish area if it's like a congregation. So yeah, it's weird, but you can't wear them into people's houses. And then sometimes even when we do shows, we have to put down like a carpet all over the entire floor of like a gym before we can set up the ring and wear our shoes in. Otherwise, we have to like grab parts of the ring with our shoes on, walk to the door, kick our shoes off, and then walk it into the room, the piece, and then walk back out, put our shoes on, grab another piece of the ring, and keep doing that. Dude, it sucks. So I throw my shoes on, and I follow Hino into Shinjuku, which is a metropolitan area of Tokyo. It's where I live. And I don't necessarily remember where we went, but we walked for a while. And we ended up at this little bar. And every bar in there is like a hole in the wall, like 10 seats max is a lot of places. So we sit down at this bar, and Hino grabs a menu, and he's looking, and he hands me a menu in Japanese. I'm like, okay. He's like, drink. What you drink? And I was like, kocha, which I learned from my Japanese phrase book. It's supposed to mean tea. He's like, oh? I was like, kocha. He's like, I was like, tea tea Later on, I learned that kocha means like Chinese tea. And ocha means like green tea. You're supposed to say ocha. Don't ask for C-related things in the J. So,
see prior episode for explanation.
Yep. So he was like, no, beer. And I was like, it's like maybe tea. He's like, no, beer. Like I just didn't understand what I was supposed to be getting here. I was like, me, no drink. And I will remember the way Hino said everything this night. Ooh, no drink? And I was like, no drink. And he's like, oh. And I was like, oh, shoot. Like the disappointment washed over his face. Because like I said, in Japan, they don't want to trust you if you don't drink. They think drunk you is the real you. They want to know the real you.
Well, now you've lured big scary Hino out based on a lie.
I was so worried about him being pissed off at me. But I was like, I'm going to do anything it takes, even if I have to piss him off at the beginning by not drinking, then we become friends. So he waits a minute and it's like eerily silent. I'm like, oh no. So he looks at me. He's like, you eat? I was like, yes, I eat. And he's like, okay, we eat. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, if I can't go drink with drink for Hino, I'm going to go meal for meal with Hino, even though I know Hino can put it down. So Hino gets like these 3 super beers. I mean, these are a gigantic Stein like mug, frosty, big, gigantic beers. Had to be at least 32 or 48 ounces in every one of these beers. And he downs a few of them. But while we're talking, trying to get to know each other, Hino only knows so much English. So he's asking me questions. And one of the things he says, favorite band. And I, for the life of me, Pete, I don't remember what I said.
Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah, I could have. I don't remember what I said because that's a hard question. So I said something, and he looks at me, and he looks really happy. I was like, what? He's like, Red Hot Chili Peppers? Dude, I don't know what I said that could have sounded like Red Hot Chili Peppers, but he thought I said Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I could tell that he was okay with that. So you better believe I was, hi, yes, Red Hot Chili Peppers, my favorite band. And he just looks at me like he was so happy. Like, yes, Red Hot Chili Peppers. And he's like, we were friends from that moment, Pete.
Wow. From that moment that you lied to drunk Hino.
Yes. And to go back 10 years, actually 15 years to like middle school, the first time I ever heard the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I hated the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I hated them so much because I didn't like the fact that the lyrics don't mean anything, and it annoyed me. Like, Danny California frustrated the hell out of me.
What were you listening to 15 years ago that you found more meaningful?
Don't even remember what CDs I bought 15 years ago. The New Radicals.
I mean, other than Il Nino.
Well, yeah. Yeah, well, I loved El Nino up until that ill-fated night in Westfield. I couldn't tell you what I was listening to back then. A lot of Slipknot, probably.
Nice.
But you know what? Better lyrics than the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Fair point.
Yeah. So I actually hate the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But I could tell Hino liked the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And this is what kind of started our conversation of becoming friends. So we had a good night there. That bar pounded a few beers. I feel like there he even ordered some small food. Then we were walking on the street a minute later, and we passed by another restaurant. And in Japan, they have on the storefront little fake versions of all the food at a lot of these places. And he pointed at something, and I didn't even see what he pointed to. He's like, have you had? I'm like, oh, no, I haven't. Because at the time, I hadn't really tried that much Japanese food. So I hadn't had whatever he was pointing to. So we go in, and it's a noodle shop. And I'll never forget, too, the person actually seating us, the host, started talking to us in English, weirdly enough. And I was like, and Hino like seemed like a little offended and talked back to him in Japanese. And I was like, what was that? And he's like, he think I'm Hawaiian. And I was like, oh. I was like, I guess I could see how Hino looks Hawaiian because he looks like he could be half Japanese, half American.
So this is crap that happens to him regularly. When someone speaks to him in English,
I guess
I'm not Hawaiian.
But since he was with me, obviously they just assumed like, oh, he's not Japanese. So I don't think he liked that because Japanese people don't like not being considered Japanese. And then we sat down, and I didn't know what to order. He asked me what I wanted, and I was like, what Hino eats, Jake eats. He's like, okay. Like 5 or 10 minutes later, we're sitting there, and this waiter comes out with this gigantic steel bowl. It looked like the size of a mixing bowl. And he sits it down in front of Hino, and it's full of noodles. It's full of udon, which are like super thick noodles. And then they bring out like a little tiny tray of like 2 or 3 pieces of fried chicken and set it next to him. And I'm like, oh no. They set that only in front of him. So I'm like, I bet there's one coming for me. And 30 seconds later, someone comes around the corner with this gigantic mixing bowl full of noodles and a couple pieces of fried chicken for Jake. Sits it right in front of me. So I eat slow anyway. So I'm downing these noodles, which are delicious, by the way. Japanese food is fantastic. But there were a few times Hino looked at me like, hey, you gonna finish, little boy? And I was like, no problem. Of course I finish. And it was so delicious. I didn't have too much trouble finishing. It just took me a while because it was so much food. But that's just like, that was how the night went. We even went to like another restaurant later, and he got a lot of beers. And I met some other of his friends. And that's what started us being homies, Pete. A few weeks later, as I talked about in Panda Money, we even went to the beach. And it was a cold day, but we enjoyed the beach.
Is that just how Hino asks questions? Because as I recall, the beach invite was Jake, you, me, beach.
Yep. Gets the point across.
It sounds very direct.
Yeah, I don't think he's saying we are going to beach. He's legit asking the question. But the way it's said, you can tell he really wants to go to the beach. Also, when I came back along, like a year later, at some point, he was like, Jake, next week, you, me, Big Buddha. I didn't know what he meant at all.
Were you going to a strip club? Like,
Big Buddha.
Is English just bad?
And I was like, what? He's like, yes. He's like, Buddha. He's like, maybe world's biggest Buddha. So I looked it up because I wanted to know where the world's biggest Buddha was. And I found a bunch of gigantic Buddha statues in Japan. But Hino took me to the biggest one. So Seikine and I all went to legit, it's like 100 meters tall. And you can take an elevator up to like story 15 of the eyes.
You could take an elevator inside Buddha.
You can. Yeah.
What's it like inside of Buddha?
Warm. It's warm, just wholesome feeling. And in gigantic Buddha, there is a room that's nothing but gold statues of Buddha, like 10,000 statues of Buddha. But I'm getting off tangent here. Anyway, so this started a beautiful relationship, which stands to this day, that I have with this super dangerous dude named Yuji Hino. And then over the next year, when I was in Japan a lot, we would go out and do karaoke and this and that. We did all sorts of karaoke. And we would do plenty of Red Hot Chili Peppers. Anyway,
what's the song? Or what's a couple of the songs that you karaoke?
Dude, couldn't even tell you.
But you're an ultra fan, dog.
Yeah, by the way, I did that. I played that in a band once at the high school battle of the bands against my will.
Yeah.
By the way,
Shout out Hop on Pop.
Yep.
Hate you guys.
Miss all these guys so much. But
Well, JVH is a good dude.
oh yeah, John's great. So but anyway, so after that August, I came back home, and you know that Red Hot Chili Peppers gets played on like every station all the time, right? So anytime legitimately in my life, I'd be walking around or listening to the radio or anything, Red Hot Chili Peppers would come on. And I still hated them at this point. But every time I heard them, the only thing that popped into my head was, yeah, that's my favorite band.
Hino-san.
This is my favorite band. And I had to smile and laugh because this is my favorite band. And that's also like kind of like the basis for how I became buddies with Hino. So it was only a few months after that, dude, I really started liking the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Anytime they came on, I got so happy. Like how anytime now Smashing Pumpkins comes on, I laugh. And I think that, did I ever say his name?
Well, it was heavily alluded to.
Yeah, so like anytime the Smashing Pumpkins come on, I'm like, oh yeah, this dude's a jerk. I hate them. But it makes me laugh. And then I get really into Tonight.
Tonight paid your bills once.
So the Red Hot Chili Peppers ended up becoming like one of my favorite bands. And then to round the story out, the last time I was in Japan for my long stay, most of 2017, at the very end of the trip, there was like maybe 3 or 4 days left before I came home. I think at this point, yeah, it was a few days before I had my biggest match that I've ever had in Japan, which was me teaming with Hino. Another pivotal part of the story is at the end of 2017, my company in Japan is called Wrestle One, and they did a tag team tournament called World Tag League. Well, I got to be partners with Hino, which is the best thing ever. So Hino and I, by the way, I was told our tag team name is the Beast and the Tyrant.
Which were you?
Which makes sense, except for they said I was the Beast and that Hino was the Tyrant.
Sounds a little backward.
Yeah, a little bit. So they just put us on things as Beast Tyrant. Because that's very Japan English. Beast Tyrant. They just want 2 cool words, put them together. That's your team. My buddy Alex and I, the first time we were there getting tortured, we joked that our Japanese tag team name would be the Shotgun Fire Brothers. Because that's just like some badass English words thrown together. And the Japanese would just be like, oh, yes. Shotgun Fire Brothers. So Hino and I got to dominate Tag League. Legit. We got all the points and lost none of the points. So we had this badass storyline where we just barely lost in World Tag League. And then we kind of like embarked on our kind of comeback trail. We ended up beating some Japanese legends. And then we got our match for the tag team titles in Kurikan Hall in December of 2017. And what's my favorite match I've ever had? Like legit the best match of my career, the best story of my career. And before you even get to go out, I could hear the video playing over the screens and the speakers in the building, like the 4-minute hype video for our match. Like our match was the selling point for this crowd of people at Kurikan Hall, which is Japanese Madison Square Garden. Legit, the best moment of my life was when I got pinned for the 3 count, 1, 2, 3, and I rolled out of the ring, and Hino like kind of helped pick me up, and I looked at the crowd on 2 sides of the building that I could see, and the fans stood up and gave me a round of applause.
While the Red Hot Chili Peppers were playing?
Nah, the music of the victors was playing. I lost. Yeah, best moment of my life. And I got a lot of that to thank Hino for. I feel like the only reason we teamed was because Hino wanted it that way, too. Because I don't know how much sense it would have actually made to team me with Hino. Because I was an unknown, unproven dude. Granted, they might have done it just to make me a guy. But I feel like Hino had a lot to do with that. So anyway, a day or two before that last match in Japan, Hino was like, Jake, do you have license? And I was like, yeah, I have international driver's license, which is a secret that I've kept throughout all of my international journeys.
And now the 6 of you know.
Yeah. So I never wanted to tell anyone, especially in Japan, that I had an international driver's license because I never wanted to drive because it's other side of the road, the wheels on the other side of the car. The roads are really small. People drive really fast. There's always traffic. It's terrifying. And there's bikes, there's pedestrians, there's everything. It's terrifying. I never want to drive in Japan. But I was like, you know what? If Hino wants me to drive everyone home when they're drunk, I'll do that. Normally, we always take the trains everywhere, but he and some of the guys wanted to go out to a place where I guess the trains don't really run. So Hino drove to the show, like strangely enough. So that night we went out and we went to like a restaurant, then another restaurant, and then a bar, and then we went to a host bar, which is where like the girls come up to you and just like flirt with you to get you to keep buying drinks, and they try and make you feel at home. I really like host bars because the hosts will always speak English with me. Like, and they're doing it because they think they're like being flirty and I'm going to like eat and drink more, right? Well, I don't drink. So they're just being super nice to me and talking to me, and I can't really give them anything in return. So I like having people to talk to.
Sounds like a strip club.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah, they don't strip. Like, they're dressed classy and everything too. But we went to like, host bar and whatever, and did lots of karaoke and stuff. So like 4:15 in the morning or whatever, record time for us to be out, actually. We never came home before 7 a.m. But he's like, all right, we leave. So we walk back to the car. Hino gives me the keys. He pulls up the GPS on his phone. And we had one other, I think our friend Ryu was with us too. So he hops in the back. I hop in the driver's seat, which is the American passenger seat. And then Hino hops in the other seat up front. We start driving back to his home, which is in Chiba. It's an hour drive from where we are. So I'm terrified. I'm going to have to drive an hour. Luckily, it's 4:15 in the morning. There's not a lot of cars out. It's still dark. So I'm like, okay, this will be fine. So we're driving. Hino's got the GPS on his phone, but he keeps falling asleep because he's so wasted. And his phone will like drop into his lap, and he'll wake up just enough to pull it back up so I can see it a little bit.
English or Japanese?
I don't know if it even had volume on. It just had like the road and when to turn. So it was like I was on mute. I don't know. And then every now and then he would be like, and he would kind of tell me to turn. Luckily, it was only like one or two roads. So Hino's falling asleep, and I'm just driving, and I'm kind of just on this drive contemplating my life and like how I got here. Because this was great. Like I knew I was going home soon, and this was like the end of like a big journey for me. What's so funny?
Nothing. How I got here. Lies. That's
lies. Yeah, how I got here. Lies. So I'm like, oh man, like this is a good part of life. And at the end of this trip, I was actually not in a good place. There's way too much stuff going on with me. I had issues with a couple things, like some with my company. My relationship was volatile and not good. I was like, you know what? This is a great night with some great friends. I'm super happy I was here on this trip. And I'm driving into Chiba, Japan, which is where Hino lives, and the sun rises. Driving right into sunrise. The sun's coming up. I'm like, man, this is beautiful. And we're like 10 minutes from his place, and all of a sudden, on his radio, the Red Hot Chili Peppers comes on, and Hino just burst open, wide awake. He went from dead drunk to completely functional just to start screaming out Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. So I started screaming out Red Hot Chili Peppers, and we karaoke'd Red Hot Chili Peppers together, Hino and Jake, in Hino's car at 5 a.m. as we drove into the sunrise in his city, and we're home like 10 minutes later. And I was like, this is one of the best moments of my whole life.
I feel like that's the point where you have to go like Thelma and Louise with the vehicle. She's like, it gets no better, man.
Like I just drive it off a cliff?
Yeah,
like this
absolutely.
is over? I could have, that would have been fine. The only downside is it would have happened a few days before that big match. If it'd been like a day after, dude, I would have ended it all. Straight up. Don't even care. Life couldn't have gotten better. It hasn't. Like this was like some of the best week of my life, man. Yeah. And one of the best friendships I have to this day. We still talk. I'm still trying to get Hino over here for a show because he's never been to America. He's really anxious to go to our beach.
Indiana Beach?
No, I'm going to drive him to a real beach. He wants to go to Florida. So you know what? I'll drive him to Florida. We're going to go to Florida beaches.
Well, and you own all of the Red Hot Chili Peppers albums, so it'll be a great drive.
I will somehow illegally or illegally download the whole discography to put on my iPod while I drive Hino to Florida so we can go to the beach.
What's the moral of this story? Lie to everyone if you're trying to make a friend?
I don't want to say that in case kids listen.
It's only okay to lie to make friends?
I think you should be yourself, but sometimes you have to be a slightly different version of yourself to get into being yourself.
That sounds convoluted enough to be
words of wisdom. Yeah.
Throw that on a t-shirt. It'll be great.
Like be yourself, but sometimes be another version of yourself.
It's deep, bro.
Yeah, until you can be the actual version of yourself.
Put someone at ease by lying.
I'd be like lying to get into office to do really good things later.
Yeah. They don't know they need me, but they'll find out.
Like, I'm going to lie about this to get there, and then I'm going to change things for the better.
Boom. Ends justify the means, apparently.
Yeah, Hino elected me to best friend. And you know what? I've maintained that office with the highest of class and respect.
And you have Flea and what's-his-face to thank for it.
Yeah, you said our relationship sounded very non-platonic, Pete. You alluded to it. Much like Flea and Anthony Kiedis. We're just two dudes.
Who hate clothes?
We do spend a lot of... And Hino and I have spent a lot of time doing jiu-jitsu and grappling. So he's been on top of me, squeezing the life out of me more than one time.
Did you tip him after?
Oh, also, his wife has done my nails. She's a manicure artist. Yeah, so she's done my nails. We went to the biggest Buddha. Yeah, I've met like so many important people to him.
Has he named one of his 13 children after you yet?
No, unfortunately not. But he probably would. His kids love me. The boys. His two little boys love me. His daughter, not so much. But they think I'm funny. Kids sometimes will try and speak to you in English because they don't have the shame that comes from making mistakes yet.
Ah.
That's pretty cool.
Would you tell them the story about how you performed at a little girl's birthday party?
Ooh, if they could have understood it. Oh, Hino is taking me to Ricky Fuji's gym. That's like his gym that he goes to often. Ricky Fuji is just...
Is he like the Chris Jericho of Japan?
Yeah, actually, that's true. He's like Chris Jericho, but just Japan only, Ricky Fuji.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's like super metal. I'll pull up a picture of Ricky Fuji in a minute and you'll understand why that's so cool. So yeah, like we go to Ricky-san's gym and yeah, he's made me breakfast and I love Hino, man. I can't even lie.
After a late night of jiu-jitsu and drinking, he makes you breakfast in the morning?
Yeah, exactly. No regrets. That's how we'll
oh my God.
how we'll finish this off. Oh yeah, should I tell people that was going to be the original name of this podcast? And then after I registered like the email and the Twitter and the Facebook or something like that, some jerk on Instagram stole it. Don't support that podcast.
You know what? I might actually remove the prick designation from our 4-star reviewer and just call that person a prick.
Yeah, whoever got No Regrets Pod.
Yeah, you're a prick.
Yeah, but Off the Cliff's a better name anyway.
Absolutely.
But yeah, No Regrets Pod. That was what we're supposed to be.
It's true.
I still have the email, the Gmail. If anyone needs that, you can have it.
Oh no, we'll sell it to the prick for a grossly inflated price because he's done nothing with it.
Yeah, man, I hope they get $10 million on our stupid podcast somehow, and then they can give $1 million of that to me just to get the rights to that web
domain address,
email thing. Yeah.
Boom.
Oh, I'm dumb.
You're not dumb. You're just ignorant.
Oh, I'm just ignorant. All right, sweet. So that's one of my favorite stories. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know. If you have any good lies you've told to people to become friends or to enter into a relationship with them, and then it turned out like pretty okay or pretty awesome, tell us about that.
I'd also like to hear if it ended in a disaster because that'd be funny to me too.
Yes. You know what? Like you could send in video clips or not video clips, voice clips, and we could even put that on an episode.
Oh yeah, we have the technology.
What's a sweet lie you've said that ended horribly or went really well? Start with the really well, and then we'll go to the really horrible. Some relationships out there have had to start with a lie and ended out in marriage, like yours has.
Lump me in with that, sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, at Off the Cliff Pod on everything. You know that. At Jacob in 2012, at Multimedia Hustle, all that jazz. And we will catch you next week. Hopefully Tuesday.